Here's something that I have noticed about lightning. Most people, when a storm rolls in, brace, especially if you were raised in Oklahoma. You see that flash of light on the horizon and something in your body tightens. Again, if you grew up where I did, you start counting the seconds to wait for the sound to see how far away the storm is, immediately calculating how close this storm might be. You know, a bunch of thoughts run through our head, like, should I go inside? Is something bad about to happen? But then there's this other thing that you've probably felt at least once, where the lightning hits and maybe instead of a fear response, it's shock. Like your whole system just sort of rebooted and you're completely present. The air maybe smells like something just got burned, or it's something new at the same time. And for just a second, you are not worried about anything at all. You're just here. You're just very present. Gate 51 lives in that second, that moment. This is the gate of shock, the gate of initiation, the gate of sudden flashes of thunder and lightning. This is one of the stranger gates that we've worked with because the thing it's trying to move us towards, awakening, sounds like it should be peaceful and calm, but the path runs straight through disruption. So let's dive in. 51 sits in the ego heart center. It's connected to the thymus gland, your immune system's command center. The part of you that learns what's self and what's not, and that's not an accident. The I Ching name for this hexagram is called the arousing. In human design, it's the gate of shock. In Gene Keys, Richard Rudd calls it the way of the initiative, the path from agitation to awakening. Its programming partner is 57, which is the gate of intuition. And that pairing is really kind of everything. 51 is the thunderbolt, 57 is the soft wind. And they need each other. Thunder without wind becomes destruction. Wind without the thunder stays too quiet when it really needs to move. And its dilemma, the thing that all of these words and phrases are wrestling with, is harshness. We'll come back to that. Agitation is one of those shadow frequencies that is so constant, so much a part of the background noise of life that most of us don't even notice it as agitation. We just call it life. It's the restlessness that you feel when you can't settle down, you don't quite know what to do with yourself, that low-grade tension that just follows you into the weekend, right? Like your mind is already 3 steps ahead before you finished what's in front of you. Sometimes this looks like the competitiveness that shows up and you're not even sure what you're competing for. It's edginess, it's irritability, right? Like the sense that something's probably about to go wrong or should be getting better. Let's be fair to ourselves. Like we've been edging. Something could go really wrong at any moment for like my whole life. It's important that we be incredibly kind to each other and ourselves and to respond with so much grace. This is supposed to be fun. It's easy for me to say that. I don't always feel like it's fun, but I do get that that's the point, that, you know, feeling good is my job here. So what's important to understand about this shadow is that it's not individual. According to Rudd, agitation isn't only inside of us, it's also right out in the field. Basically what I just said. Our solar system is moving through different cosmic frequency zones. And for a long time, we've been moving through a kind of galactic eclipse. The signal from the galactic core went dim. And when the fundamental signal dims, systems get really noisy. And they start generating their own static. And that's what we've been doing as a species, generating static. And that's probably a helpful way to look at it, really. Like now, and this is the really hopeful part, we're moving out of that eclipse. That signal is coming back online, which means the agitation that has felt so permanent, so foundational, actually has some context to it and a timeline. So here's where the dilemma of harshness comes in. When we feel agitation, whether it's our own nervous system's noise or the collective frequency field, our first response is almost always harshness. We either try to run from it, repress it, numb it, distract ourselves from it, or we try to fix it, right? Harder, faster, more intense. We grab the agitation like a problem and we try to muscle it into submission. I'm so guilty of this. Relationships look like snapping at each other and then feeling terrible about it. I'm sure none of you know what that's like. And in our inner lives, it looks like using meditation or therapy or yoga as another way to fucking beat ourselves into better shape. We are the north wind in Aesop's fable, blowing harder and harder to try to get the coat off of the man and watching this person pull it tighter and tighter around themselves. And agitation in the nervous system, in the body, looks like hypervigilance. The startle reflex that never gets a chance to turn off, never gets a break, gets to go offline. The feeling of always bracing for the next shock, right? And ancestrally, this could be lines that experienced sudden violence or exile or persecution. People who learned that the unexpected is really dangerous. Change is dangerous, right? Codon CGU, which codes for arginine, which we've been talking about for a couple of weeks now, carries this energetically. Lineages that expected the worst because the worst kept arriving. This shadow isn't asking us to get rid of agitation. It's asking us to stop being so mean about it. So the move from agitation to initiative isn't about calming down. It's about redirecting. Rudd uses martial arts here as a metaphor. Specifically Tai Chi. When someone comes at you with force, the Tai Chi response is to lean into it, not away from it. You redirect the energy rather than opposing it. That's why fighting anything causes it to actually grow. If only we could really get our leaders to understand that. The opponent goes flying and you didn't exhaust yourself fighting, right? So that's initiative. That's meeting your agitation, your restless, nervous energy, your anxiety with creativity instead of harshness. You feel the charge of the thing and then you use that energy. You end up moving with it rather than pushing against it. And this is why the gift is called initiative and not calm or stillness. The energy doesn't go away. It becomes something bold, moves, original thinking, showing up for your life instead of bracing against it. I'm not suggesting that this is always easy. It's requiring quite a cognitive shift to happen. And that takes practice. It really does. So in the human design system, 51's mastery is the ability to consciously use cycles of disruption and unexpected twists and turns as catalysts. Things that deepen your connection to source and to your purpose, not things that break it. Disruption becomes initiation instead of a thing that's actually like throwing you off track. There is something else in this gift that I want to name directly too. It's deeply personal. The gift of initiative isn't about following an established path. If the path looks pretty clear to you, you're probably on someone else's path. And I did not come up with that quote. I don't know who did. Feel free to tell me. It's not about doing what worked for someone else. Rudd is very clear. There's no external guide. Not even the gene keys themselves can show you your way. The gene keys are a mirror and they point you inward into yourself. But initiative requires you to trust the direction of your own feet. And that's the 57 thread coming in here. That's what the earth is in right now to help balance this energy out. 57 is soft intuition, body level knowing that doesn't announce itself super loudly. When you pair thunder of 51 with the quiet signal of 57, what you get is courage that's rooted down in your own inner knowing, which is not reckless and it's not performative. It's very grounded, embodied caring. And then the highest level of 51 is called awakening. And I do kind of want to be careful here because it's easy to reach for the grand version of this word, the enlightened state, the complete dissolution of ego, the arrival at permanent peace, right? And that version is real, but it's also not particularly useful to most of us our daily lives. What Rudd points towards and what I think is actually workable is this. Awakening is a series of softenings. The awareness starts to get more focused. The heart gets more open. And then every time that we're confronted with something harsh, unexpected, turbulent, whatever, instead of tensing against it, we begin to relax a little bit more. We relax into it. It takes practice. Gentleness is the most essential quality for moving through initiation. Gentleness. The Vajra, the symbol of initiation in Tibetan Buddhism, represents permanent and indestructible change. Once you've been through real initiation, you can't unknow it. I have this whole sleeve here from the children's book, The Velveteen Rabbit. And if you aren't familiar with that storyline, the old sawhorse here is like the rabbit's guru. And at one point in the story, he tells him, by the time you're real, aware, by the time you're real, you're going to be bunchy in places that you used to be smooth, right? Your eyes won't be as shiny and bright. You're going to have aged. But once you're real, there's no going backwards. It's the same story right here in this gate that we're in today and for the next 5 days after. So you can't unknow it, which what makes it possible isn't force. It's softness, it's mildness, it's feeling spaciousness in your life. 51 teaches us that as we become more yielding, our consciousness expands. And the version of awakening that I think we can actually live is you hit a wall of agitation, you feel the thing, and instead of immediately trying to fight it or fix it or flee it, you get curious. You take a deep breath and you lean in a little and you meet it with the one tool that the shadow is always trying to bypass, which is gentleness. What's really going on here? What is this feeling about? Can I stay present with this sensation that's running through my body right now? That's initiation. And it will have to be done over and over and over again. I think we awaken and fall back asleep thousands of times a day. And that's just part of our process. So let's talk about the body a little bit, how this shows up. So CGU codes for arginine, an amino acid with a pretty remarkable job description. We've been talking about it the last couple weeks, so I'm not going to go super deep in here. Precursor for nitric oxide, helps with wound healing, but I think the thing that we really need to understand is that when this is metabolically blocked or depleted, when that codon is running in its distorted frequency, what you tend to see is someone who's frozen in crisis, who can't recover from shock, who anticipates the next blow before they've even dealt with the current one, right? The nervous system is really stuck in brace mode, and then blood fists and then vessels constrict, and we're talking about just living in rigidity constantly. So ancestrally, this looks like lineages that experienced war and hardship and sudden exile and violent upheaval, right? GTFO. People for whom the unexpected genuinely was dangerous and survival required constant readiness. That pattern gets coded in and passed down, and then we carry it out into the world where the threats are different, but the body still responds the exact same way. And healing this codon isn't about eliminating a startle reflex. It's about teaching the system that it can recover, that you are eternal life, and that eternal life is also the thing that renews you. So you're the healer and the healed. In any given moment, I think it's a really important, powerful statement to remember, right? Like Easter was yesterday. You are the resurrected and the life. It wasn't just Jesus. So when I was reading the I Am discourses, which if you haven't checked that out, I really recommend it. It's a channeled work. And in it, Jesus gets channeled at one point, and he really encourages us to make use of that statement. I am the resurrection and the life. And if I am honest with you, it has made me so wildly uncomfortable that I've had to really do research and like, how can I say this a different way? Because I can't say that. Like, I grew up in religion and it feels very almost traumatic. Like my body was having the reverse reaction to the statement than I would have hoped, right? And so I've really had to do some work there. So I do encourage you, if you react negatively to the words of Jesus in any way, shape, or form, I do encourage you to take a look, because ultimately his essential message is one that we want to stand by. There's nothing wrong with his essential message ever. So, but religion is a whole other thing. This is very literally what EFT does. It shifts the nervous system's threat response so that the body can process what it couldn't process before, right? It's about teaching the system that it can recover. That disruption can be metabolized. You know, from a karmic perspective, this distortion can get passed down as over control, attempt to predict and manage everything so that we prevent the next shock, which, as you've probably noticed in your own life, doesn't actually prevent shock. But it is very exhausting. So what we're working to restore ancestrally, genetically, karmically is the initiatory cycle. The understanding that disruption can actually be generative, that the thunderbolt doesn't always destroy, it also clears. Okay, so things to watch for. Watch for genuine courage showing up. You feel the fear and you do the thing anyway. Creative solutions emerging from unlikely problems, things that you thought were a problem but ended up being the pivot that you actually really needed. Moments of unusual presence right after something disruptive. Noticing how you're changing, noticing and giving yourself, I mean, personally, I believe in the reward system. Like, blow that shit up, like, have a party, make it almost silly how celebratory you can be about the smallest shifts that you notice within yourself, right? And then here's the reframe. Shock is the body of initiation. We think of disruption as something negative, as something to recover from, but 51 suggests something different. That the moments when your system gets rattled loose from its original holding pattern are the moments when change actually really becomes possible. The agitation is not the enemy. The harshness we bring to the agitation is the actual problem. What if disruption didn't mean something went wrong? What if the thunderbolt was a delivery system for information and for movement and for the kind of clarity that only comes when the usual background noise goes quiet? So we don't have to chase awakening. I think that's a misperception, but we do have to stop running from the storm. You know, the soft wind is already there. It was always there. So we're going to move into the tapping portion. Meet me in part dos here in just a moment.